Christopher Johnson, I'm present and I'm by myself.
Susan Almy? Not here yet, huh? Don Lacey?
Don Lacey, I'm present and I'm alone.
Bruce James?
Bruce James, present, alone.
Sarah Riley, Vice Chair?
I'm here and I'm alone.
Sue Ellen Balestra? Not yet present, huh? Darla Bruno? Darla? Wasn't she around a moment ago?
Her microphone has a line through it. She doesn't have her audio on, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, it wouldn't let me unmute for some reason. I don't know. Finally, I got it.
Okay.
I'm present and alone.
Barbara Hirai?
Barbara Hirai, present and alone.
Erling Heistad?
Erling Heistad, here and alone.
Okay, I think I can appoint Barbara Hirai as a full-time member for this meeting. As a regular member, I mean.
I don't know if we have an open.
Sue
Full-time-
Almy is currently absent.
Exactly, there's one.
Yeah, instead of Susan Almy. We probably will turn up later.
Be a regular meeting, regular member.
She is.
Good.
So Barbara, are you okay with that?
I'm fine with that. Thank you.
All right. Then we need to approve the minutes of the previous meeting. Before I do that, I want to comment for Barbara Higgins. Comment her on the diligent recording of our minutes on all previous occasions. Do people have corrections to suggest on the meetings from last month?
This is Sarah. I have a small number of corrections.
Go ahead.
On page 2, line 26.
Okay.
I do believe the gentleman's last name is Finley.
Yeah, that's right. I know him.
Okay.
And later in the procedures, he's mentioned in the right name.
Do you know how that's spelled?
I believe it's simply swapping the L and the E.
Okay. Okay.
And on the next page, line 1, in this context, residents should be with the TS.
Yeah. I did that on several.
Somebody at something at this point on page 2, line 24, it's the same issue.
Yes. I have that. Susan Almy sent an email of some corrections.
Right. Along the same lines on page 3, line 21. I do believe it should be, instead of the plant, I think it's referring to the road, La Plante, which is capital L, A, and then I'm not sure if it's a capital P.
On that one, I remember them talking about, is there some kind of plant across the street they were talking about having built the head wall? Is there that's,
Okay.
and I could be wrong, but that's what I remember that specifically. And I thought that's what they were talking about. I could be wrong.
I could be wrong as well. Okay.
That they were talking about that, whatever's across the street. Is that the Department of Water across the street, across Route 4?
No, they're referring to something up in the neighborhood, and that's why I was assuming that it should be the street name.
Okay. I can change it to La Plante.
Okay.
Well, I think you were right. It was some kind of structure which needed a fence around it.
Because they had said the neighborhood ones were going to be the same size, but they said down across the street where they were going to put one more in, it was going to be large, but maybe I must have understood.
Then
There
we
is
can
more
leave it.
flow as it goes across the road.
Yeah.
So do I change it or leave it?
Well, good to Barbara Higgins in this case, ask Christina Hall to clarify that particular issue.
Mark, is that appropriate?
I can listen to the tape again.
Sure. Either of those options are viable.
Okay, I'll listen to the tape again for that part and see if they were talking about a plant or they were talking about La Plant Road.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
I have one more on page 4, line 24.
Okay.
Yes, I agree with that.
I'm not sure if Sue already sent you anything about this.
Not this one, no.
Okay, then to clarify, I did re-listen to make sure I did re-listen to this one to make sure I knew what he was talking about. But I suggest that we to avoid confusion, I suggest that we start this paragraph with Mr. Warden explained that. And then we can leave there is a forested wetland.
Okay.
And then I would have a full stop. And then I would clarify the following point about the water.
So Mr. Warden explained that there is a forested wetland, period.
Yep. And then what he essentially was saying is that a lot of the water going to it comes from the parking lots to the south and discharges through this parcel. So that makes sense to me.
So a lot of the water coming to it.
Yep. Comes through, sorry, a lot of the water going to it comes from the parking lots to the south.
From the parking lot.
The plural, parking lots.
From the parking lots to the south, you said?
Correct.
Okay.
And discharges through this parcel.
And discharges to this parcel, okay?
Full stop.
Okay. I can do that. We had one more that she's not here, but maybe I'll mention it to all of you and maybe you could tell me. On page 5, line 7, she wrote, I'm not really sure what she wants me to write. She wrote either the number of parking spaces ... was determined, or the parking spaces ... were determined. Page 5. Miss Harai asked how the parking spaces at this project were determined. Maybe that's what she wants me to change that.
Or maybe add how the number of parking spaces was determined.
I think that's it, Bruce.
Okay.
Let's put number in there.
Number would be singular.
Oh, okay. The number of parking space of this project. Okay. I've got it. Thank you very much.
Oh, I do have one more, and there seemed to have been an extra roll call vote listed, unless I'm confused, on the top of page 7.
No, what that is I know I tried to make it so it was more. What happened was we were doing the roll call vote for one of the motions, and in the middle of it we had to do a roll call for extending the minutes. So I actually tried to write that the one vote was to extend the minutes, and the other one was actually moved to for the motion.
So the roll call vote at the end of page 6 is to extend the meeting.
Yeah, that one actually is roll call vote. No vote on the motion. Yeah, I can flip them, I think, and put. So what we did was there was a motion, then they moved to extend the minutes. So I just need to flip 44, 45, and 46 on page 6 with this the top of page 7, so that the extend the minutes is right after the motion to move, and then your vote will come after that. For that
Make sure
motion.
it's you're extending the meeting, not the minutes.
Yeah, that's what I meant. I'm sorry, to extend the meeting.
I have a couple of small ones. This is Bruce.
Okay,
On page 2, line, let's see, 16. I think that rights of way is preferred over right of ways.
okay,
Small thing. Let me see here. Somebody picked the other one up. I think page 3, line 1. Again, it's residence TS.
okay, I have that.
Okay, you got that one already. A couple of places in the minutes you have northwest or east, a point of the compass. I think those can be lowercase for the first letter. Line 13, page 4, northwest. And there are others.
Okay,
Let's see, let's see this one. There is a bar. Okay, that one's okay. That one's okay. I'll get that one. Okay, that's all I had.
okay.
Can I ask for a motion to approve these minutes as amended? I'll have to do a roll call on that.
I move they be accepted as amended.
Second?
Second it.
Okay, so it's Bruce makes the motion and Erling is a second.
Right.
So roll call. Chris, in favor?
Yes, in favor.
Susan's here. Don?
Yes, in favor.
Bruce?
Favor?
Sarah?
Yes, in favor.
Darla? Darla?
In favor.
Barbara?
In favor.
Erling?
Erling votes aye.
And I vote aye too. So it's unanimous approved.
Ernst, this is
believe
Sarah.
I believe the next issue on the agenda is the item number 3A. I misplaced the agenda. Where did that go?
We have it on the screen, Ernst.
Okay. Yeah, it's number 3, item 3.
Yeah, and
Jerome, are you
Yes.
still with us?
I'm still here.
Can you give us a, sorry, hopefully short 10-minute presentation on the proposed project you have on Poverty Lane?
Sure.
ahead.
The proposed project is we're going to pull off our old sunroom that was just poured on a loose slab, which is falling away from our building, our house, and erect a 16 by 16 sunroom with frost walls for the slab, so it will not fall away from our house as it currently is, facing the eastern direction. And it's just a sunroom with large windows and, basically another family room. Construction wise, we'll dig the foundation, but we'll make sure we protect any loose gravel or dirt from falling into the wetlands if it could, but it's being erected on a flat surface, so that shouldn't be an issue. I don't know what else you guys would need from me for that.
Well, can you explain why that came up for review?
I honestly, it was from a satellite photo that says it's within 100 feet of a high valued wetland.
Yeah, and I'm happy to speak to the process if that's helpful.
Yes, please, go ahead.
Sure. So the within the zoning ordinance, we have the wetland buffer. It's a buffer to the high and medium high wetlands in the city. And so the intent is to really at least review, sometimes restrict, sometimes permit intrusion into that buffer. And sometimes we have some homes that are already in that buffer and the language is written where they shouldn't expand further into that buffer. But so that's why Jerome has to come to the city and seek a special exception, is to the approval that he would seek from the zoning board, from the ZBA, and the Concom plays an advisory role in that process. You sort of just weigh in, and the ZBA can either, act on your thoughts, your comments, or they can go in their own direction. And so that's sort of the process. That's why Jerome is here. It's the addition would expand in the direction or within that 100 feet of the wetland buffer. With that being said, and having been one of the co-authors in adopting the wetland buffer, there's certainly areas in the city where we would say, no, there shouldn't be any expansion into that buffer. But there's also areas in the city, such as this home, where I think that where he's sort of expanding, for one, it's a minimum expansion. For two, it's basically on his lawn. It's not like going into the forest. It's not destroying, sort of supporting habitat to that wetland. So my staff thought on this is one that we really want to minimize sort of the bureaucracy that an applicant would have to face to do something that seems perfectly logical.
Page 9 shows a nice picture of how that 100-foot line just clips the corner of his house there.
Mm-hmm.
It's a very nice demonstration on page 9.
So that's really what I have, is sort of, hopefully that addressed, why we're talking about this, and hopefully it addresses what your action is to make a motion, make a motion that captures your sentiments to be conveyed to the zoning board. And then they'll make the final determination whether they issue the special exception or not. And then again, I just gave you my staff opinion on this one. So
May I ask, do any of my colleague commissioners have any questions or concerns?
It certainly doesn't look like we're moving into the wetland area that's going to be detrimental to the wetland at all. It looks like we're moving out on the lawn, which is going to be a loss of lawn, not threatening to the wetland. So I don't see a major problem with it.
It is downhill toward the wetland, though, and it is possible there could be erosion or drifting of stuff in the construction down in there. Has that been addressed, that issue?
I'll make sure that's not an issue. I'll make sure that's lined with hay bales so that doesn't happen. But the section that we're building on is flat. It doesn't start really sloping until a good 15, 20 feet away from where we're going to build.
I see.
If I may say so, I went by there 2 days ago to have a look at it during one of my hikes off Farnham Hill. And I looked it over. The pond is, correct me, Jerome, if I'm wrong, the pond is an artificial pond.
Correct. That's what I was told. And it sure looks like an artificial pond.
Yeah, because there's a well somewhere somewhat upstream from the pond.
Yeah.
Then it drains somewhat like a funnel where the red arrows go. And I believe there's an artificial dam-like structure. Is that right, Jerome?
That's correct.
Further, the ground where the building is supposed to, the slab is supposed to go, is indeed flat. And that material is also artificial fill, according to Jerome.
That's what I was told when I purchased the house.
So I agree this is a very minor, hardly any disturbance of a wetland. I feel convinced that it shouldn't be a problem. Any further discussion?
This is Sarah. Ernst, can I ask a couple of questions?
Yes, please.
Jerome, are you contracting the work out? It seems like you've been talking about it like you're going to be doing it firsthand.
So I have a contractor that's going to work, but I designed it myself. I'm an engineer by trade.
Okay.
So I designed the structure myself. I know how to do all of it. I physically can't do all of it. I'm still working full time right now. So I do have a contractor that's going to do it.
Okay, great. I'm just curious if before this project came up, if you were aware that your property included or was in this high value buffer.
I had no idea that there was 100-foot high buffer. I was assumed, and my contractor thought it was like 50 feet, which we're not even, we're going to buff up to like 80 something feet is where this new sections can be. We'll be 80 something feet away from it. So
Okay.
I did not realize there was 100-foot buffer. No.
Okay.
How did
Okay.
that come up? Was it when you applied for a building permit that they advised you of that, or?
Yes, that is correct.
Cool. So the system works that way. That's good to know.
I'm glad about that too.
I just think it's a great opportunity to speak to a resident who has a high value buffer on their land, and to just hear what your understanding is of
Yeah.
the wetland and what your responsibility as a landowner is.
Can I
It's a
speak
bit
to that?
beyond this project, but
Yeah. Can I speak to that a little bit?
please.
As I said the other night, my father taught conservation for 35 years.
Oh,
So I kind of know a little bit about conservation, and one of the reasons to do this sunroom is so we could see all the wildlife that comes through our pond. As we had an ice break, we had an otter come up and start eating fish out of our pond.
Cool.
We had last night we had 2 Canadian geese. We've had mallard ducks. We've had wood ducks in the pond. I've had the blue heron in here eating fish out of pond. We had the big snapping turtle that comes all the time. So it's kind of a way for my daughter to see all the wildlife that comes through as well,
fantastic.
because now we'll be facing that direction instead of facing inward on the house.
Excellent.
That's great.
So I'm going to chime in real quick just to, we're trying, this is our first attempt to stay within minutes that we've outlined for each topic discussion, and we're already not doing a great job of it. So if we can wrap up, I guess, if there's some last comments, and then make a motion, we can move on to the next agenda item.
So shall I ask for a motion?
Or, maybe an opportunity if there was some last burning comments, but otherwise we really should keep moving.
We usually put
This is
limitations on approvals. Do we want to add anything in terms of protection of the wetland?
If you're out,
Fencing, or you
no,
say you're going to use straw bale around it?
yeah,
You want to have anything else in terms of oil or machinery?
so I'm of the opinion, none of the above, none of it's needed. It's a flat lawn. He's going 15, 18 feet onto this flat lawn. He's going to be taking care of not wanting to damage his lawn itself, and you're far from the tree line, and the edge of this addition still going to be 85 feet from the wetland itself. Nothing from this project is going to make it to the wetland. I don't think anything from this project will even make it to the tree line. So I don't think it's necessary to talk about any erosion control or what have you. So
Yeah, we don't need to add anything in.
Even invasives will be taken care of by repeated mowing of the lawn from the hay bales. So even me, a big invasive person, thinks it's okay.
Thank you, Don.
All right.
This is Sarah again. I'm just wondering if the zoning board brings up the best management practices for wetlands, just for landowner knowledge. And I'm wondering if we can perhaps push best management practices for living alongside a wetland in this sort of situation. I don't know if we can share a document. We've talked about sending out letters to residents, to homeowners along waterways in the past. Oh, somebody poking in. And I'm just wondering if this is an opportunity to further share that sort of information with residents, or if it's completely not the right time or place.
That might be helpful for the contractor as well, who wasn't fully familiar with the 100-foot buffer rule.
Mm-hmm.
Well, the same always goes for fertilizer and something that runs into this water, insecticides and so on.
Yep.
I think we have doesn't the city have a pamphlet or general instructions for people in these zones? Mark?
Oh, I can't, I don't recall.
DES does.
Yeah.
New Hampshire DES does.
Yeah, and again, I mean, there's many, the majority of the properties that are within the buffer, I think you'd hear me advocating for this type of stuff. Here, again, I think it's, look out your window at your flat green lawn and think of 15 feet off the side of your building. There's really no impact, certainly no impact to the wetland, and not even really an impact to the wetland buffer. So I think this particular gentleman's already been made aware of wetlands are a resource the city cares deeply for, to the extent that they'll require him to come have a conversation even when he's within 100 feet of them. So, but it's your whatever direction you want to go.
Well, we cannot make that a condition. It's just for his information. I think we should go ahead with the motion. Who's going to make the motion? Erling. Were you interested in making a motion?
Yes, this is Bruce.
Bruce?
I move that we approve this to the Zoning Board of Adjustment as a permissible change in his house with regard to the wetland buffer.
So can I rephrase that a bit? Suppose we say move that the Conservation Committee recommend approval by special exception pursuant to Article 4, Section 401.5, the proposed replacement of a 9x12 slab with a 16x16 slab. This pertains to 328 Poverty Lane, tax map 188, lot 4, zoned R1, CC 2020-05.
I second the motion. This is Sarah.
Is that okay with you, Bruce?
Yes, that's much better. I agree.
Yeah. No, but that just spills out all the details that has to go in this. We have to do a roll call again, I'm afraid.
I don't know if Barbara got that. Sarah seconded the motion.
I did get that, yes.
Okay.
So a roll call. Sarah?
Yes.
Erling?
Yes.
Chris?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
Don?
Yes.
Barbara Hirai?
Yes.
Darla?
I don't vote. I'm not a full member. I don't vote.
Okay, yeah, that's right. And I vote in favor too. That makes it unanimous. Barbara Higgins, you got all that?
I did, thank you.
Okay, good. So then, can you pull me up to schedule the agenda again, Mark?
Okay, thank you all.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Jerome.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Good luck with the project, Jerome.
Thank you. Bye.
Okay. Whoops.
Now, I'm looking at number 4, study items.
Yeah, I've got the, hang on. Got the wrong, yeah.
The wrong agenda.
Yeah, I've got 50 million ones open. Let's see if I can find it. And we may, if I can't.
It's a stewardship volunteer program.
Yeah, why don't, if everyone can see it, we may, I'm having a little, I'm fumbling and bumbling at the NASA controls here. So can everyone see what's next on the agenda? And
I have the sheet in front of me.
No,
let me, I'm going to try that one more time. How about that?
Well, there's number 4. Item A,
So you,
chip.
everyone can see the agenda?
Yeah,
Yes.
Yeah.
and then there's a
Okay.
document for it at the bottom too.
Yeah, this agenda is a little bit modified just to fit on this page, and it's actually 2 pages. And so we are moving on to the study items, and we'll roll through those. And just prior to, I just want to commend the chair for, that was an excellent modification to the motion. That was perfect. We always want to reference the application, and then you're always you're not approving it, you're recommending or not approval. So that was a great job there. And we can move on to the resident stewardship volunteer program. And I'm happy to provide an update, but we have both Sarah and Barbara Harai have been super engaged with this. So why don't we see if one of the two of you want to start the discussion? And again, we'll try to keep it to 30 minutes.
okay, this is Barbara. I'll start, and then Sarah can correct me. Sarah and I have been going back and forth on these ideas for a while. And so what we were looking for is how do we organize a stewardship program? And in the process of doing that, we were also thinking about how do we make a flyer to go at the kiosks as we enter and hopefully generate volunteer interest that way. So that was how this came out. So some of the comments will be about how do we do the flyer, and the other comments may be on, is this how we want to structure our stewardship program? So in my mind, a monitor would be someone sort of at the entry level who just wants to wander around and look at things and report back, but begin to show some commitment and some involvement. And I would hope that we could take these people and do some training programs or maybe get them involved in Wild About Lebanon, and so that that's a starting program. The second level would be the trail steward. We had been calling that Adopt a Trail, but that is sort of a trigger word, so we've changed that to trail steward. And I hope that that will convey the idea as well as Adopt a Trail. So those people would commit to a specific trail and monitor it at least twice a year. And also perhaps maybe remove some invasive species and do some trail work on it. That is important because right now Ron Daly is monitoring almost every trail in the city at least twice a year. And if he knows that there's a monitor or a trail steward who's taking that particular trail, then he isn't going to have to walk that trail as frequently. And so I think that we can model that program after what's happening in Hanover. They have an online sign-up program. We have a little bit of work to do trying to get the trail lists and the maps ready to go, but we could start with what we have and build as we improve. The next would be people who are interested in being on a trail crew, and so we can call them up and say, we got a project here. And so we know that we have those people on call. I wanted to put mentor in because I think we may have a lot of people in town who are willing to lead a walk on a vernal pool or ferns or something. And the more we can get them involved, the better. And the final thing was volunteer special projects. And this is what Ron Daly has really been concerned about, that we have a lot of sort of bigger projects that may take an afternoon or a weekend or a couple of weekends to do, whether it's building a bridge or doing a major invasive species removal project or creating a trail. And that would involve reaching out to community organizations and businesses, like Hypertherm. I've already we have a volunteer list, which I've started going over, and the Boy Scouts are really interested. They're ready to go. So we just have to get them matched up with a project. So they're trying to decide between being a trail steward and special projects. But that was sort of what I was thinking, and I hope that the brochure communicates that, and we'll start bringing in volunteers. Sarah.
I think you covered it, and I'm just hoping we can get feedback from the rest of the Conservation Commission on this sign, because I think the sooner we get it up on our kiosks, the better. And we're hoping that Mark will soon have the right email address for the very bottom of the sign. We're just working out a few contact details, but about the content of the sign, I'm hoping that people have some feedback.
Well, very nicely presented, Barbara. What kind of definition does one use for stewardship in this regard?
Well, we went back and forth on that a lot because we used the term conservation, we used the term stewardship, and we thought we needed to be a little bit more clear. I had thought the whole program was stewardship, and that just doing trail steward was a little limiting for the future. But we couldn't come up with anything better to replace trail adopter.
This is Sarah again. We do also have a member of the public here who will eventually maybe comment. I don't know if we need to introduce Eric.
Aha. Eric Achterberg.
Klopt.
Hey, we don't know Dutch. Come on now.
All right. Well, yeah, sure. Tell us about your suggestions, Eric.
Or do we want to hear from the other commissioners first and then before Eric?
We've got him on the line now.
Okay.
I can wait. I think it would be good first for the commission members to actually talk through it. And based on that, I can also give some feedback.
I had one comment, Don. This is Don. I understand very clearly now that you've run through it, but when I first read this list, I was a little confused between the difference between number 1 and number 2. I see what you're getting at when you explain it, but when I just quickly glanced at it, that was not real clear to me for some reason.
Yeah, and I think if we said adopt a trail, that would have been clearer. But that is, that terminology is not politically correct.
Why is that? Is it, you said it's a trigger thing?
Yeah, there are people in the adoption community find it offensive to be, if they're an adopted person, they feel it they're offensive to be compared to a trail or a dog.
Really? Huh.
But we could, I mean, that I think if we could find a better term, that would be fine. Because for me, stewardship is a little bit more of a grander, broader than just a trail, but that was the best we could come up with.
How about a number 1 if you said, rather than explore several, if you said explore any of our conservation properties?
Fine.
Just
Yep.
This is Mark. I think you may have caught on to something, Don, where I'm wondering if, regardless of the term store monitor, but the action is 1 and 2 the same thing? Because if you just engage in monitoring, then that's okay. And if you go beyond that, so we've got to separate, be a monitor, but then we go to number 2, be a monitor and do additional stuff. So that's something to think about, whether that's.
And a monitor of a specific trail too, or trails. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Whereas the first one, there's no specificity. It's just general. That was what I wasn't quite clear about when I first read through it.
And perhaps instead of just select a trail, it's sign up so that they're doing something active. And they know that they have to make a commitment.
Good thought.
This is Bruce. One of the things I like about it is that you have a name for each of the sort of the level of commitment: monitor, steward, crew, mentor, volunteer. So I think that a citizen resident could identify with one of those and say, oh yeah, that would be really nice. I'd love to monitor, but I don't think I would want to be on a trail crew, say. So that gives people kind of a hook into what we're trying to do here. I like the way you've laid that out into 5 categories.
Mrs. Ernst, if I may say something, when we're talking about a trail, I think we quite often deal with a set of trails. There's the main trail and there are branching trails, and there's a shortcut trail. I'm not even considering the new trails which suddenly appear because people take shortcuts and don't follow the original trail. So the definition be a trail steward should include, yeah, an area with trails or something like that. What do you think, Barbara?
That first sentence could be just explore conservation properties. We don't have to get into several or hour or whatever one, but mainly we want to get people out to explore the properties and get involved. I was delighted to see this, and I hadn't been aware that you're working on it. So thank you very much for doing this.
Yes, indeed.
But do you agree that just one trail encompasses several trails usually?
Yes,
Ernst,
I do.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Is that Sarah?
Oh, it was Sarah, yeah. I was going to just agree with Ernst. It could be a trail or a series of trails or a network of trails, depending, because some of our trails are longer, some of our trails are shorter, in which case a network of trails would probably be appropriate for an individual.
Right. All right. So I'll admit that. We also need expertise when we're going to do trail work. The Upper Valley Trails Association, should we get them involved?
Can we, Ernst, is it perhaps okay if we focus on the sign for now? I'm not sure if they have a separate, that's like a sort of a separate tact to go down.
Okay,
Yeah, I've got signs written down on my list here too. Right.
It's interesting as you look at trails, how many water bars are not effective, but then you come on a trail with people who knew what they were doing, and you have very effective water bars that lead water off away from the trail into a shed that where it won't be back on the trail again.
Yeah. This is Sarah. Barbara has pointed out, at least to me, that Ron definitely wants to share his wisdom, and we can definitely educate people and train them in how to properly maintain a trail. But I don't know that that affects the arrangement or the formatting or the wording of this this flyer that we want to get up on the kiosks.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that could be done when people make the contact. That could be that there's training available at that point.
This is Mark. Now I like having both 1 and 2, and I guess I see the separation being you could do number 1 and you don't have to contact me. You don't have to contact someone in the city. You could just be out there monitoring. You will contact if there's something that you find, something you want to report. And then number 2, maybe that's, maybe we should have something in there, sign up to be a monitor or something. So now before you do something a little more aggressive, if you will, maybe in that case, I want to kind of hear about it, and maybe at least I connect with the person and then understand what they're proposing to do, and then either give them some assistance or direct them where they provide more information, whatever it is. So something to think about. Maybe there is sort of that's kind of the distinction between 1 and 2. 2 is you're getting a little more serious, and I need to know a little bit more of what you're proposing to do, type of thing. But again, a lot of this is I don't want perfect to be the enemy of good. So
this might be a good time. This is Sarah. If we want to hear from Eric, because this might throw a different dimension to maybe one or two.
Okay, Eric?
Yeah.
Ed.
So, yeah, so how I would see this, right? This is sort of your sales pitch that you try to do to get people to come on board and help out. So the text needs to be very simple, so I don't think you want to add too many words or distinct things of what you want that person to do. I think having, different words will help people understand there are different areas that you can get involved with. I don't think people will be too worried about should it be a monitor or a trail steward. I don't think that is really a key thing for people to focus on. What really got me though was if I look at the 1 and 2, was the one is, sorry, it's hard to read on my little screen, but select a trail to monitor versus an area, right? And I think that those are the two differences. For me, if I would select an area, I would actually think that it's a lot more work than just selecting a trail. If I would be involved, I would want to take care of the area. The trail is part of exploring that area. If you just walk a trail and you see some invasive, yeah, it could be right off the trail, but if you don't explore the area and you see actually how that invasive is spreading throughout your area, you're missing a lot of information, I think. Then there was a part where it said several, and I can't, maybe if somebody can increase the zoom level on this document, I can actually read it. Just on the lower right corner, there's a plus or a minus. On the Word document, you can just hit the plus. That would be great.
Mark, can you do that?
A little further to the right, all the way to the right. Yep, a little lower. There you go. I could see that. Yeah, thanks. So, sorry, somebody's in the lobby and it keeps popping up and I can still not read it. There we go. So explore several of our conservation properties. I think that that's going to be a barrier for people, right? Most likely what they want to do is have an area that they are familiar with and really feel passionate about, that they want to get involved with. So I don't think it's a good thing to just only have several. You know, if it would be an option, I think you get a lot more people.
Oh Lord, they're already this low.
In other words, Eric, you would have people select a property.
Yeah.
And keep an eye on that.
Yes.
This is
And also
Barb.
can-
I agree with what Eric was saying, and I had originally thought of it in terms of those broader terms of being stewards for a whole park or a area, part of one of our parks. But the problem that came up with was that Ron really needed to have people committed to monitoring those particular trails. And so I would hope that if we're doing, someone is a trail steward and we do some training programs or, you know, outreach with them, then we're all to the area around the trail or within the trail system that they're walking.
So you need the person to be registered as such, and then give them a training to do it. Who would do the training?
Well, that would probably be Ron for a while, Ron Daly. He's really anxious to start training people.
Okay.
And this is Mark. The training is going to be reflective of what's the scale of what's being proposed and the experience and knowledge that someone has. So if someone calls me up and says they're a professional forester and they're looking to just do some light trail thinning, then away they go. So training definitely comes into play with bigger projects, and training is something we want to make available, but it's not necessarily you have to get trained before you go out and engage as a steward. So
okay, to Ernst's point about a trail or many trails, Corey just overheard. She says, "Well, I would want to start with a small trail, and I would be intimidated if I had to do a trail system." So I think we need to leave some options for people who want to do small trails and people who want to take several trails and do a trail system. I think with the sign up, we could do that. We'd have that flexibility.
This is Mark again. That was my one concern when you say adopt a property. Someone would be like, that's 900 acres.
Yeah, right.
So if we say, one option is select a trail, parentheses S, close parentheses, something like that for the number 2. And I definitely think on number 1, explore our conservation properties. That's not, that could be one, that could be one trail on one. And again, maybe we're, overcomplicating it, that the average person's going to say, I kind of guessed that you weren't going to limit me to one trail if I want to do other stuff.
But sorry, but also to add to that, I think it would be good that somewhere in here is to explain that you don't necessarily have to do this on your own, right? If there's you're helping people, maybe there's 2 stewards. If you have a very big property, you can do it together. You know, you don't have to all do it by yourself, even just if you want to do one trail.
For instance, the Boy Scouts, the Cub Scout troop would probably, as a troop or a pack, Cub Scout pack, choose a trail, and they would do it as a group.
Yeah, as long as they're well trained. I went to one of these training courses of the Upper Valley Trails Alliance a few years ago, and there's more to it. So you just cannot have a bunch of Boy Scouts go out there and dig away at things, unless they're well led and know what they're doing.
But if what this is saying is, number 2, to sign up to monitor a specific trail at least twice a year, do light trail maintenance. And what Ron thinks of that is just tossing them branches out of the way. And then report. So after that's reported, then so there only would be doing very light trail maintenance without further guidance.
Can I follow up on that?
Yeah.
What would that mean, report? They submit a written report after or before they do it? Is it going to have a standard form to simplify that?
That's what the phone number, email address down at the bottom would be, so that if you saw, like Eric found, a man cave and a fire pit, he could report that just by calling this number. It would go into a report system, and then Mark would look and say, oh, well, we need to send the police out, or we need to send Ron out, or we could send out a special teams or whatever. So,
okay, as long as we have some traceable, report.
This is Sarah. So there will be an additional framework behind this flyer. This is just something we want to be able to put up on the kiosks at our properties, and perhaps share a version of on the website and in a Leb alert email blast or what have you. But there is more work to be done in creating that infrastructure behind the flyer. But I'm not sure that we want to have, I'm not sure how much more time we have to discuss this tonight. Mark, where are we on our timeline?
I wasn't tracking it. It feels like we're approaching, we've been at it probably, I'm guessing, at least 20 minutes, and we had allocated 30. And yeah, just on that note, I mean, a couple, just 2 thoughts really is, I'm all for, if there's some obvious improvements is fine, but let's not let perfect be the enemy of good. At the end of the day, someone's going to call me if they have a question. Can I do more than one trail? Or what does that mean? Can I do the whole property? Is it just so, at some point there's it draws someone's attention. They respond to it. We get it as close to perfect as we can. And then the second point I want to make in terms of like that's the Boy Scout joining up to do some stewardship work on a project. That to me is a number 5. A group contacts us, and that's definitely a different scale. That's where, as Ernst alluded to, that's where I say, well, wait a second, first of all, let's pick the appropriate project, go back and forth with their skill level and what have you, and then identify what resources would need to be in place to support them. Maybe their scoutmasters, who he has done a number of these projects before, so he's fine. If they were proposing to run chainsaws, I'd say maybe not so fast. So.
And I think that was really clear to me when I was talking to the Cub Master on the phone this week, because he was trying to get ready for a meeting because he wanted to present this whole concept. And it became clear to me that I'm not clear enough on what the projects are or how to train people, that I can recruit volunteers, but Mark or Ron or someone else is going to have to really be in charge of matching them up to the right project and making sure they're trained or qualified.
Well, I think this is Bruce. I think one of the things this does, I like the way you framed it, because depending on who signs up, whether it's Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, somebody from Dartmouth College students or whatever, you might say, well, these people would really fit in as working on a particular fairly simple special project. Others might just want to be monitors. So we might find that depending on who volunteers would determine the distribution among these and what people could do in any given year or season. So I think this is really good to go with a few minor edits just to get the idea out and get people calling up and signing up.
Right. Great. Keep it simple so people will call.
Yeah, just, you don't want to overwhelm them. But when I read this, I was personally very excited. I want to be part of this.
Yay! Great.
I want to be.
I thought it was great to see the Conservation Commission in a position of reaching out and saying, come join us.
Yeah.
And I think that that's the main message that we need to get out there is, come on, join us and have fun in your conservation land. And if you'd like to give a hand, then we'd be delighted to have you. And here's an email address and a phone number, and be in touch.
Cool. Excellent.
Yeah, that sounds good. Should we ask Ron Bailey to guide us on this a bit, or have us follow him, or whoever's interested?
Barbara.
This is Barbara. I've talked to Ron a couple of times, and he's talked to Mark extensively. And he would very much like to guide us on this. I mean, he helped me work out sort of this framework in my head before I took it to Sarah. Yes, we need to include Ron Bailey.
Good.
So this is Sarah. I'm wondering if I could make a proposal or just ask a question. We spoke about, is that good, Ernst?
Yeah, but just I think hanging up announcements on the kiosks is preaching to the converted, more or less. We need people from somewhere else.
Well, one of the reasons we thought about these flyers at all was because Mark got a call from a woman who was new to the community and had gone to Boston Law and saw one of the old flyers up there, saw the phone number on it, and called Mark and said, I want to be involved. Well, basically and I called her back, and she said, I could pick up a few cans and maybe a couple of sticks, but I can't do more than that, but I'd really like to help. So that's what the monitor is for, the sort of the beginner level or the older women or whatever.
Right.
That's great.
This is Mark. To Ernst's point of preaching to the choir, you are right. And I think that's why we'll do a multi-pronged broadcast that, either this same verbiage or something similar could go out on the listserv. It will be available on our website. Maybe it goes on the Leb e-news, and at a minimum, we do have it at our on our kiosk. So cover kind of multiple bases.
Barbara, Ernst again. If you talk to Ron Bailey next, can he let us know, let us know what and when he's going to do something? Even ordinary trail cleaning he does. How he keeps his axe as sharp as it is.
So what you're asking is that Ron have sort of, because I think he just, when he has time, he goes out and does stuff. You're asking that he be a little bit more organized about that. And so he says, I'm going tomorrow. Who wants to join me?
Yeah.
You're putting a whole nother onus on top of being a volunteer out there. He does a lot because he loves being out there. It may not be his great love to say, now I have to organize, everybody's going to trail behind me. If I was Ron, I would say, go do something else with my time.
I mean, I got the impression from Ron that he's really anxious to start training people to take his place. He can only do this a little longer, I would think.
Yep.
Yeah.
Really need to train 10 or 15 people to take his place.
Well, Barbara, how about if you give him our emails? I have Conservation committee list on this address book, and I punch in Conservation Committee, and I get hold of everybody. Could we do that with Ron Bailey as an exception?
I can talk to Ron about that.
Yeah, this is Mark again. I think, you know, Ron, this just covers a wide spectrum. There's volunteers that are going to just call and want to do something that Ron doesn't need to be involved. Ron can be doing his thing. And I definitely don't think Ron is envisioning everyone who wants to volunteer has to tag along with Ron. Catching Ron is like catching water in your hand. It's next to impossible. So I think where you would see Ron interact with the volunteers is something at that kind of larger scale project. It could be one person. It could be one person asking, hey, Ron, do you have an hour or two just to show me even the bare bones? And he'd probably say, sure. Or it's going to be one of these bigger projects where we've got some volunteers from Hypertherm. Ron's probably going to be there from start to finish. So, yeah, I think he's available for that both, but I think he's hoping that this will be up and running in the absence of him having to be involved with every volunteer.
Mhm.
But perhaps if we generate 10 trail stewards and we could email those and say, would you like to join Ron on a training hike or something? So you would do it for just those that are looking like they're becoming more long-term commitments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree. It's definitely Ron is definitely a resource we could avail to a volunteer. And so again, we'll know more if it's pretty early out of the gate. They need to contact me, and that's sort of the assessment that takes place. Who is this person? What are they interested in? What is their skill level? Informing them that there is Ron if they are seeking assistance and stuff like that. So.
Mark, does Ron let the city know which trails he's going to work out and work with and when?
Never.
Just
That's a pipe dream.
Yeah. No, I mean, if he was doing something, you know, again, if he was doing like building a bog bridge or something, he would say, I'm going to be working here. But otherwise, it's always after the fact. I've been here, there, because you know, he reacts to the weather, he reacts to the conditions, he reacts to his own personal schedule. So, yeah, so I never know where he is.
Yeah, okay.
This is Sarah. I'm hoping we can get back on the main topic. I think the Ron communication is sort of taking us off on the side track. I would really like to just know if there are any additional comments or improvements we can make beyond the slight tweaks to 1 and 2.
I think it's good to go with the slight tweaks myself. I vote for it.
I think you've got it.
Getting it out there, doing it.
Yeah, we need the phone numbers, email address, the city email address on this. Huh? And a bit more advertising somewhere, somehow. But putting up flyers on kiosk is a good idea.
Members of the birding community are often on conservation lands. Signal Hill, the LeBrun property, a lot of places, folks, that'd be another place to advertise it, the birding community, Upper Valley Birders or something.
What community? Oh,
Birding.
birding.
Yeah, bird watchers.
Okay.
Barbara, I heard burning too.
I heard burgers. I must be hungry.
Okay.
I heard burgers,
For
yeah.
their feedback. Thanks for the feedback. I think Sarah and Mark and I can proceed with final edits.
Great.
Yeah, we don't need a motion on this. I think it's fine if you fine tune this and let us know.
Yeah, I think we're real close, and I think Sarah, you probably I don't know if you took notes or whatever. There's a couple of the tweaks, and
Yep.
Eric's comments were good comments as well, and so I think so slight modifications, and away we go as the season's upon us.
Yeah,
Great.
do it.
Fine tune and post it.
Yeah.
Which leads us to the next topic.
The web page. Okay, next to the study item, web page. We have 30 minutes for that.
That's what it says.
Who's going to talk about the web page?
Well, this is Sarah. I can put one or two sentences to it, and then Mark can probably fill in.
Can you start with the basics? Where are this webpage going to go? On city stuff?
This was 2 meetings ago, I believe, perhaps the last time we met in person. A few of us raised our hands when it was asked if anybody wanted to be involved in renovating the Conservation Commission's website on the city's. So the Conservation Commission's page is on the city's website. And that was, the hands that went up were Chris's and Darla's and mine. And we have just not gotten far because we are still trying to figure out what we are constrained by the city. And so we've been communicating with Mark, and Mark's been communicating with IT. So that's where we're at. I'm hoping Mark has more information.
Yeah, just to add to what Sarah was saying, so we're, I mean, the objective is to improve our communication, our kind of the look and feel, our web presence, I guess. And so it really is kind of maybe in 2 categories, both the kind of the layout and design, as well as sort of the content, and well, maybe functionalities in there is the 3rd leg of the stool. And so historically, it's been really limited that we have the city contracts with Civic Plus that provides sort of templates, if you will. And so the content is always whatever you want it to be for the most part, but the layout was definitely restricted. So now the city has recognized that for some boards and committees, that would be fine having the standardized template, but for others, it's not serving them well. And the Conservation Commission is one. And so what I mean by that is, if you go to our website right now, the page is really, as I described it, as it's an administrative website. It's all the administrative information associated with you, when you meet, when your term expires, who the members are, which provides some value, but it's pretty boring, pretty bland stuff. That what we really want to pop is sort of the more attractive stuff that you're involved with. And so we do have the opportunity now to do a different layout, so that sort of that administrative stuff is, I guess what I'd say, describe as secondary on the page, and the more attractive stuff is sort of the primary focus of the page. And then in addition to that, as I was describing, we're also a lot boils down to content. What's the appropriate content? What's the right content to have on there? And as a working group, we've looked at a couple other communities and some pretty good ideas. You know, it's the type of content that you would somewhat imagine that it's going to relate to information on the wetland permitting process, and then kind of landowner information, if you will, of if you had questions about herbicides, pesticides, landowner education type of stuff. And then our different programs, whether it's the amphibian program, amphibian crossing program, whether it's this trail stewardship program that we're standing up, or whether it's the Wild About Lebanon program. So I think we have a fair amount of content. We still need a little bit more for sure. And then we can start doing what I describe as sort of a napkin drawing, what would the page look like? And both Darla, Chris, and Sarah all, are no strangers to a web page's layout. So that's kind of where we're at. Did I miss anything there, Sarah?
So when is this subcommittee gonna meet?
Well, we have been meeting, but it's right now it's not. It hasn't been a formal subcommittee, because then we'd have to have a minutes taker and you'd have to create the committee. So it's just a work group for now.
Sure, whatever. Yeah. Work group.
Right. So if it wanted to, either we can keep operating that way, that just 2 or 3, and it's a work group, and then bring product back, just like we brought the flyer back. When we have something to share, bring it to the full commission, or certainly the options on the table if we needed that middle step of, let's have a more formal subcommittee that's going to review the information. To me personally, it feels like a kind of a small enough endeavor, that it would just stay with a working group that just comes to the full commission?
I agree with that 100%. If we can keep it simple, and
Yeah.
communication will be better. I think definitely let's keep the work group model. It looks really good to me.
So how many people are on the work group now?
Don't forget to say who you are.
Yeah.
This is Sarah.
So Sarah?
So we just have to keep track of announcing ourselves before we speak.
So this is Ernst. Who are on the work group?
This is Mark, and I mean, I don't even know if we were ever like sort of official. I know Darla has been involved, Chris has been involved, Sarah has been involved, myself. Am I missing anyone? I think it was just us four.
This is Sarah, and yeah, that's based on who raised their hands at a meeting 2 or 3 months ago, and that's who has been on the emails for the past couple of months. Just Sarah and Chris and Darla and Mark.
So this is Ernst again. So you four will then get together and come up with a presentation.
Sarah speaking. It's just been a few emails. We have not been getting together, but we've just been communicating by email, and
That's fine.
I'm wondering if Mark, you envision that we will be able to communicate with the city's web designer, or if we are going to continue to sort of work through you, or if we can involve her directly, just so we could. It seems like it might move faster, but I'm assuming that she's swamped. So
Yeah, it depends. Yeah, she is swamped, so it kind of like she's not interested or the appropriate resource for content. You know, that's, as she would tell you if she was listening in, she'd say that's your sort of ball of wax. That's the area you guys hang out in. So you decide whether you want something on invasive species or butterfly gardens or whatever, pollinator gardens. And so content's really sort of, we have free reign, if you will, on the content within reason, of course. And then layout, I mean, I think what she would do, and I can't remember if I shared it, is, it sounds like they do need to, they're desiring to stay with kind of a template. So there's some consistency, but we now have this second template that has that could be shared as sort of the starting point, where, that would be the napkin drawing, if you will, that's going to show that maybe the title still needs to be at the very top or something like that, but maybe everything else is in place. So even moving those pieces around on the napkin drawing, so to speak, early on, I think we would not sort of take up her time doing that. And then when we have something that we're somewhat comfortable with, then hand that to her, certainly, and before we go back to the committee and just say, is this going to be problematic? Does this work? Did we miss something here?
this is Sarah again. I think we didn't exactly get that template though. And so if we had that template, I think we could start filling it with content, no problem.
Okay, yeah. I know I didn't send like a word. I couldn't remember if I sent a screenshot or I know she provided me with a screenshot, but I'll try and again, even like if it was me, when I did this exercise like 6 years ago and it just never made it prime time, is it's basically in PowerPoint, just sort of drawing, moving things around. Where would I have this? Where would I have that? Where would I have this? And again, then back to, it really drives content, because you really want to identify all your content and then see what you have space for, how many sub pages you're going to need based on that kind of the amount of content.
So if I may interject, these are all details the little work group can now work out by themselves very well, I believe. Mark, just one question. What is the cost of a website like this? And who's going to pay for that?
Zero cost. So this is
Fine. That's all I need to know.
yeah, you're just modifying your existing website.
Okay.
This is Barbara. Would it make more sense for this working group if the rest of us on the committee contributed content now, or would it be easier for you to sort of map out your format and then have us suggest content later? For instance, Dawn and I met with Barbara up at Hanover about what stuff that's on the Hanover Conservation Commission website. And I've shared some of that with you, and I think Dawn has too. But other people on the commission might have things to share.
Barbara, this is Sarah. I don't think we need to talk about content right now. I think what we need is the template, and so we can get that from Mark in the working group later, and then we can populate it with the content.
Okay.
I'm
Yeah,
wondering if Darla or Chris has any feedback.
Ready?
Yeah, this is Chris. I mean, that sounds good as is.
Okay, great. So can we move on to the next study item, amphibian crossing program? Is that your bailiwick, Chris?
No.
Okay. Somebody sent pictures out.
Oh, I sent the photos out. Yeah, I didn't. That's all I had though. I didn't realize it was gonna end up on the study item.
Thank you
I
very
can
much.
introduce that a little bit. This is Sarah, if you would like. Is that okay, Ernst?
Are you the one who's going to talk about amphibian crossing?
I think Mark has some input as well, but I can speak for the volunteer effort that's been sort of going around the past year and a half, 2 years. It was last year in 2019 that Suzanne Church started trying to get some local families to get out on Big Night. I mean, I think people have been doing their own big nights for a while, but she started a push to get more people doing it last spring. And she created a public folder on Google Drive where people could get some training information, some data sheets, some signs if they wanted signs, and where they could share photos, and where a map that Mark produced was also made available. And so this past April, I think it was was it just before or just after our last Conservation Commission meeting? We had maybe was it the only big night of the year?
Oh, there were a couple, I think. That was the biggest, though. That was
biggest, the biggest big night. And so Mark had created a wonderful map with some potential hotspots for crossings throughout the city. And Suzanne and I put this information out on the listserv, and I think Mark put it out on the Leb E-News, and Suzanne just gathered some stories that local residents had to share, including Dawn. Dawn shared a story, and I shared a story, and Chris shared amazing photographs. And so my goal of whatever's left of these 10 minutes is to find out what we as the Conservation Commission would like to do with this kind of information that we gather about hotspots on big nights. What do we do with the data we find out about what species we have crossing and what kind of areas of high roadkill we have? Is there any way to make these locations safer for a short period of time on these big nights for crossing amphibians?
What site would I access to get plain information about the big night in Lebanon? Go to Google?
If you would like to get to the public folder that Suzanne Church created, I can send you a link.
How would an uninformed person get that?
Pardon me?
How would just an uninformed member of the public latch onto that? So,
Well, an uninformed, I don't know, but anybody who reads the Lebanon listserv there was a link to it in the listserv, and also in the e-news that was sent out by the city.
This is Barbara. In the future, is that something that could be with a link or some sort of presence on our webpage?
Definitely.
Yeah, this is Mark. Yeah, exactly. That's the goal. That we'd still do a blast, levy news and what have you, listserv, in the appropriate time of year, March, what have you. But then the home base for this information would be on our webpage. So we'd probably migrate away from, having it on a private Google site, what have you. It's right on the city, and there's a couple examples of that exist. So we kind of know what it looks like, and we're taking baby steps, moving in that direction.
This is Don, and I think documenting that is really important, because knowing the locations of these vernal pools is additional data that doesn't show up on the general mappings that are done. They really have to be kind of ground found. So I think carefully documenting the location of those would really augment our natural resources inventory data from a scientific point of view. Yeah.
This is Sarah. For example, I can share my screen briefly, and you can see the map that I created of just the spots that I witnessed. I don't know if I was allowed to take over. Does anybody happen to see my
there
screen?
There we go. Yes. Good.
Yeah.
There.
So the green amphibians on this map indicate areas where I found multiple amphibians crossing roads.
Huh.
And some are on the city's known hotspot map, and some might not be. But for example, this is Hanover Street, just north of the pedestrian overpass. And that's where I think Chris took his photographs, if that's...
Yep, that's correct.
And I was there slightly after Chris, and I found an abundance of amphibians crossing as well. But also, if I said the Beaver Dam on Mount Support Road, just around where the old Hypertherm building is, does that mean anything to anybody?
Yeah, it's Wetland.
Yeah, this just uphill, just north of that is there was a large number of amphibians crossing and many roadkill as well. And then in a couple of other locations, Mount Support, this one here is just north of the northernmost Timberwoods building. There's a depression in the road, a saddle. And
Is that where the culvert is?
I can't say for certain, Erling.
Yeah.
It was a bit scary because so I didn't spend a lot of time there because it was very dark, and it's a bit of a people just drive way too fast. So
25-mile speed limit.
yeah, yep. And then this particular one was just outside of somebody's driveway, just north of the property that we reviewed a couple of months ago.
Yeah.
But then around the Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center Loop Road, surprisingly, a lot of amphibians were crossing on the west side, southwest side of that road.
How did you generate these spots on the map? Is this an iNaturalist thing, or how did you do that?
So this is Google Maps. It's a feature called My Maps. If you type in Google My Maps, then you can create your own maps. You can create your own points on maps and such.
Cool.
So that's how I did this. But
This is Ernst. Sarah, can I ask you, are there any crossings along or across Poverty Lane, particularly on the south part?
So what I learned by going out last month was that I don't want to be driving on a big night. I think so I did not go to Poverty Lane, but I think Mark's map, which I can share if Mark doesn't have it already handy. Mark's map, I think, contains some potential hotspots on Poverty Lane.
Ernst, you can identify some your very self next year and add to the points.
Right. I can walk that. It's all close by. I just need to know the nights.
Warm, rainy nights in late March, early April.
Okay.
When the temperatures are above 40.
Well, this is Barbara. I think if we announce these nights ahead, this is a good way of getting people involved, especially families with children. It's a good outreach.
The this is Sarah. The dead end of Hanover Street is a very good place for families with children because there were no cars except for mine. But every other location that I visited was rather traumatic because of the cars, and I was glad that I didn't have a child with me. I've always talked about this as a great thing for families, but Suzanne Church agrees that it's very stressful when you have to navigate traffic. And if we can really find the hotspots, and if we can really target the days, then it is a great opportunity to try as much as possible to reduce the number of cars on the roads in those locations at that time.
Mhm.
This is John. Is it the Harris Center that puts out probability rates for days as we're around that time of year?
Yes, it is the Harris Center in southwestern New Hampshire who does it, and it's a pretty good forecast for us too. But I have a pipe dream of us having a sign up where somebody could say, "Oh yeah, sign me up for text alerts." On if there's a chance of a big night.
Great.
Just like if you're an ice skater in Lebanon, you can sign up for text alerts about the Pat Walsh outdoor ice skating rinks, so that you know when they're open and when they're closed based on weather conditions and conditions on the rink. And I found those really useful all winter long. And I would love to just have a reminder so that anybody who is interested doesn't have to keep tracking the Harris Center. They can just get a text alert saying, hey, tonight might be a night. And even if that means that they're not going to go out and escort amphibians across the road, it might just be all that they need to do to stay off the road that night.
Yeah. Suzanne sort of did that this time, didn't she? Notified people that it was coming up.
Perhaps, probably, yeah. I know that I can't remember, but I'm
She
probably.
put up work somehow in various ways.
Oh yeah, we sent out messages on the listserv.
I see.
But Mrs. Ernst, for the moment, the window of opportunity is closed, isn't it? Being in the middle of May. So why don't we get warrant again with a meeting in March or April again?
Well, this is Don. Ernst, you can still identify vernal pools by seeing egg masses that are there and looking for polywogs as they come out. So you can identify where these places are going to be ahead of time.
Yeah, my vernal pool's in the middle of the forest behind me.
Yeah.
And those guys are not going anywhere except to a different pond maybe, but they're not crossing any roads, as far as I know.
It's good to know where they are and get them documented, though, anyway.
Yeah.
All right.
Here, I can share briefly the hotspot map that Mark created that includes Poverty Lane.
Yeah.
You bear with me.
I need a map and the dates.
So
here's your map. Yeah, I see it. Yeah.
So here we have Poverty Lane, and
yeah, it's the corner with the wood farm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's where the schoolhouse is. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know all those places. Good.
But it'd be great if we can add to this map.
Object.
Yeah.
So I will unshare.
Share with us. Now, is that enough about amphibian crossings? Anybody else on this subject?
This is Mark. I'd say my only other comment is if we are going to kind of improve on what we've done in the past, what have you, then we probably wouldn't want to wait till March or April. It'd be a good November, December, or maybe even a good December, January project, and have it ready to roll when the big nights are upon us. So.
Right, yeah. Okay, very good. What about item D, Wild About Lebanon program? 10 minutes.
10 minutes, which should only take 2 minutes because the program's been on hold since the COVID-19 pandemic has hit. So we had one scheduled for Chambers Memorial area this Saturday, I think it was, and that was going to be led by an amateur ornithologist, a birder, and so that would have been a fun one. It's a great area to observe birds, but we just decided still, premature for social gatherings even outside. So the one after that, I believe, will be Tickner. So that could be the first time that we're up and running again, and probably still needing to take certain precautions of social distancing and what have you.
Who was going to run that and when?
Tickner, I think it's probably a combination. It's usually either myself is available, Ron's available, or one or two of the staff members, Allison from Upper Valley Land Trust.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know if there was a organized group that went up last week on Tickner? Because there was about 6 cars that showed up all together, and everybody walked up and were gone for an hour or so.
Yeah, are you taking that, Sarah?
I know of 3 cars that parked at the Tickner Road entrance on Sunday afternoon last week, but I don't know about the other 3 cars.
Yeah, I just heard rumors from abutters.
Interesting. There were 3 cars, mine and Barbara's and Ernst's. And there might have been 5 of us. So maybe they were referring to the number of people. I did recall seeing a gentleman standing on his front steps just north of the road. But I understand
Little
that
house
is
on the left-hand side.
Yeah, but I do understand that that is an officially okay place for cars to park.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So.
Well, we parked the 3 cars in a row sequentially. That's all there is.
Well, and the week before that, this is Barbara. Sarah and I parked in Amelia Serene's driveway, which is actually a right-of-way, which is another entrance off Layton Hill.
That's good to know. What does Amelia feel?
She's pretty fussy about people parking in her driveway.
That's got the little narrow section that goes out that accesses the property.
Yeah. So
Earl thought that you had been gone long enough to get up to Townsend's farm and back.
We
you
did.
Make it up there?
You spoke to Earl Jetty?
Yeah.
Yeah, we went all the way up to the farm.
Bruce's or Bob's?
The trail needs some work because there's a large hemlock across it. I was hoping the neighbors would clear it up, but not so far.
I'm not sure who's, sorry, Erling, I'm not sure whose property we made it to, but it's the newer stone wall that's just south of the ski hill. So.
Stores.
Right, just south of that.
The Townsend farm.
Yeah.
Well, you got 2 farms up there.
Yeah, but that's mostly the Townsend farm. The big open hay field.
Yeah, Bruce has the lower one, Bob has the upper ones.
Yeah. It's a beautiful spot, highly recommendable. So let's move on to the section E, ARM Fund application update, 5 minutes. Mark.
Sure. Yes, I just had to unmute myself. The update is that I've made contact with Upper Valley Land Trust, sort of exploring their interest in providing a technical assistance, I guess, administrative assistance, project partner, whatever we're calling it. So similar to what they did for the Tickner property. So we've exchanged a couple emails and have a pending phone conversation. So that's more or less where we're at. I know the deadline for the, what do they call it, the preliminary proposal is probably coming up pretty quickly. So
yeah, the end of May.
Yeah, and I think it wouldn't hurt to because I think it's like a one-page application, at least get that in as a placeholder while these conversations continue. You don't get penalized if you never submit the final application if you're not ready this year. So yeah, it would seem logical to get the preliminary application in there.
This is Sarah, just to confirm, it is by May 29th that the 2-page pre-proposal has to be submitted.
Mark, the landowner, this is Ernst, the landowner is interested? I can't hear you. You're still mute.
I'm sorry, I hit the wrong button. You can hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so the landowner, as you may recall, expressed an interest in a potential project well over a year ago. This is when before the money went into the ARM fund, we were looking for a shovel-ready project, and it just didn't pan out within that time frame. So I haven't contacted him again because I probably pestered him 3 or 4 times with what felt like false promises last time. So now it's a bit of a chicken and egg where I may, because it doesn't require a lot of resources, take a route where submit the preliminary application. DES will tell you pretty quickly, pretty early on. They'll say whether you have a project or whether no, it doesn't meet their criteria. And so I'd almost rather hear from them before I then go back to the guy. So rather than for what would literally be the 4th or 5th time I called him up, espousing the potential, purchase of some of his property. So yeah, that's kind of a rambling way of saying at this point in time, I'd prefer to get the preliminary application in there and see if we even have a potential ARM fund project prior to then going back to them. So, but of course, you could turn that upside down and argue the other way. Well, don't do the preliminary application until you've contacted the person. So.
It's okay with me if you go ahead and start this project with the ARM people, the ARM fund people, the preliminary permit or preliminary investigation. Is that okay with my fellow members?
I agree, Don.
This is Sarah. I agree too. I don't think we need, I understand what Mark is saying. I just, I'm wondering if a drive-by or something is needed just to make sure nothing has happened to the site in the, in the intervening year.
Anybody has objections to Mark trying to get the preliminary permit?
No, I think we ought to move forward on it.
No, this is Bruce. I agree.
Okay. So Mark, can you then get this in under the wire, 29th of May?
I think I can. I don't even know if I've looked at the both pages, but I mean, thinking top of my head right now, I wonder if we had talked about whether there was a commission member that wanted to kind of be involved and maybe at least start filling out the application. And I just don't know without looking at it right now where it may be 90% of the information that's required is stuff that I may only have access to providing those answers. So yeah, maybe let me put it on my to-do list, and I think I could get there by the 29th.
You're asking for help, Mark, in a very gentle way.
I am, but I'm just trying to be practical about it, that if it's, again, asking you all this stuff that I have at my fingertips, it just doesn't seem an efficient way to go.
Let me know if I can help.
Okay.
Nothing else to do with all this COVID.
Yeah, I mean, why don't you, I won't touch it this week. I've got too many other things I'm working on. So if you want to review it, Ernst, and then if you see that, a lot of this stuff you could easily fill out, maybe you get 70% of it filled in and I'm filling in the blank, so to speak. So that, yeah, I would definitely welcome that if you want to take a first stab at it.
Yeah, Sarah, you sent me a copy of all these papers on the ARM fund.
Yes.
So I'll try to find them. If I can't find them tomorrow, I'll email you.
Okay,
Um,
I can tell you March 16th. If you're-
when you send it.
Oh, maybe not. Yeah, I was just checking. I might be wrong.
It's on my desk somewhere
Okay.
else.
Okay.
I have one related subject, and that has to do with the current use situation. Or how am I? We conversed via email, Mark, and actually the members here, about this current use situation. I have the impression that the city or the finance department doesn't really know who's in current use and what the situation of their property is. Have you figured out what's going on? For instance, we're talking about the park, River Park, which is being developed. But to my knowledge, we haven't got the money, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, I could provide a sort of a general overview of how it works. So the assessor does know every property that's enrolled. It's a program that's really administered by the city assessor because it reflects or it affects your tax bill.
Yeah.
So you will, and it's a state program, I guess. It's state enabled, but it's administered through the local assessor, the city assessor. And so he has a list. He can generate a list. He has a database of every property that's enrolled in current use. And sort of as a side note, sometimes it's not 100% of a property. You can enroll, it might be a 100-acre parcel, but you've enrolled 70 acres of it in current use. So he knows which properties they are. I generated a map of those properties a long time ago that I still reference from time to time. And so the properties are out there, they're enrolled in current use, and they just sit there outside of, you wouldn't know which ones are current use unless you looked at my map or unless you asked the assessor. And then when really any sort of reaction occurs is when some development or subdivision, they become less than 10 acres, when they no longer can meet the criteria to be in current use, there's usually a trigger that informs the assessor of that, whether it's a planning board approval for the subdivision or a building permit or what have you. And then the assessor kind of provides the oversight in terms of the timing. Okay, how they haven't built a house yet, but maybe they put in a parking lot or something like that. So he determines when you've gone far enough that I now want, it's now being kicked out of the current use program essentially, and therefore you owe me X amount of money. And then he's tasked with collecting it, and we just sit back and a check comes our way. So yeah, so there's an existing mousetrap. So if for example, I suspect one or two of the properties on Mount Support Road, a couple of those big projects, pretty sure one or two of them is enrolled in current use, and so they don't need to come out of current use while they're being reviewed by the planning board. There's no approval on hand, but at some point, and I think it's closer to when the bulldozers actually, the blade of the bulldozers hitting the ground before they're getting sort of unenrolled or kicked out of the current use program.
Well, my suggestion would be that the Conservation Committee gets every 3 quarters, every 3 months, some kind of update on these current use status. Which properties are in it, which are being developed, and any change in the status. And of course, the payments received, if any.
Yeah.
Because that needs to go to our lost fund, which is just an odd name.
Yeah, no, that's so you've reminded me that we had that process in place that maybe it was Susan Almy, it was a commission member back in the day, I bet it was 10 years ago, that I think it was Judy McNabb actually. And so she was interested in tracking, when do we know these monies have been deposited in our account? We're not getting bank statements every month. And so we had requested the finance department provide me what's essentially a bank account statement for the lost fund. So whenever something goes in the lost fund or something comes out, then I'm notified, and then I used to share those with the commission. And you just reminded me that I haven't seen one of them in a while, maybe a couple of years, and it could be because there's been no transactions, and or our finance director has turned over. So the new finance director may not be aware of that. That it's something that the commission had requested to be in the loop. So I will chase that down. And again, when there's a change, it's usually there's a change and you folks want to know, well, what's our balance at now and how much just came in? So what I couldn't report on, no one would have the ability to report on, is when do you expect so-and-so? And when is this going to happen? When is this? How long will this one be in current use? That's anyone's guess.
Right. What I would appreciate is every 3 months to just get an updated status. These are the properties in current use. These are
That's a lot of work, Ernst.
being worked on. These people are developed, these projects, and here's the money coming in. And this is the current statement of the account. Every 3 months, too much.
The city manager has requested that we don't overly burden the staff with not current or necessary items. And what we view as current and necessary may not be what they view, but there is a definite push at not using up administrative time in reviewing minutes and changing things in minutes which aren't going to be substantive in terms of changing things. And it'll be the same thing in terms of our using up of administrative staff time. So we need to think about, is that a priority high enough that we need to address it at that level? Because it'll come back to that level, I think.
Well, it's negotiable to a large extent, of course, because with nothing, no, we get nothing.
Yeah.
Once the system is in place, it, in my opinion, should take a few keystrokes on a computer and a report pops out.
Yeah, this is Mark. I think you're close. It could be, but and I think you're real close to how this would play out. And but the one tweak I'd have is there's no need to send you the same list time and time again. If you saw initially where these properties were, that would be of interest to you. But moving past that, the only thing that's of interest is which ones came out. You're not really interested in which ones are still in. It's
yes, I know. Yeah,
you get that from which ones came out. So.
What's the sentiment of my colleagues? Should we have some report on this every 3 months, every 6 months, or once a year?
This is Don. I think if Mark simply followed up as he said, we could see what he comes up with and not dictate a requirement necessarily.
I think if we knew when there'd been change in the status, that would be sufficient. Nothing else is going to change anything, whether we get a report or not.
Right. Well, I just want to come back on the River Park situation. David Clem has been developing that now for a year, but now the shovel is in the ground there, and the plows are working, or the bulldozers. Mm-hmm. And to our knowledge, at least mine, we haven't seen any money yet.
This is Mark. Yeah, no, that's so in that situation, I think it's fine to sort of ping me and say, hey, any updates on that? Because you're right, that one's seems like something would be happening soon. So that's in that situation, I would just contact the assessor and just say, hey, do you have any updates on that? But otherwise, yeah, I think I wouldn't say every 3 times a year, 4 times a year. What we'll get back to is the way we did it before, is when the account balance changes, update me and tell me why it changed, and then I can share that with you.
This is Bruce. That sounds like a really practical way to go.
So who's going to contact the assessor?
I will. Yeah. Well, it's actually the finance department. They're in charge of our account. So they're in charge of, again, sort of providing what I'm describing as a bank statement that shows any deposits or any withdrawals. So.
All right. I'm all for that. Committee reports. Conservation lands monitors. Any reports?
Yeah, I guess that's me. It's Ron's been busy. He put in a ton of hours early on. He likes to really get the trails in shape prior to people getting out and about. But it was sort of a race against time, or I think actually they were probably overlapping him because as I think what he said is he's never seen so many people on the trails the past 6 weeks.
Right,
So
I've noticed that too.
Yeah, so they're getting a lot of use. He's got them tuned up, and of course they're always tuned up until the next wind event. So right now we're in pretty good shape. I've been out and bucked up a couple trees with a saw, some of the bigger stuff, and yeah, and so the general kind of the annual cleanup's been done, but we still have plenty of projects to do. There's always some more signs to be hung, signs to be replaced, some blazing, and then at kind of a larger scale, there's a couple projects. There's a couple trails that are just really wet and muddy that would really benefit from what we describe as sort of a bog bridge, section or two. So that's
there's a large hemlock across the Ticknor Trail. Too large for me to cut up with a handsaw. Do you have Ron Bailey's number by any chance handy?
I don't have it right here.
Is he in the book, the phone book?
I believe so. And I mean, I'm in contact with him every other day too. So if, and even like in any of those situations, whether it's a commission member or the general public, that's what we're trying to, where we're trying to get to is someone knows who do you call? And then it's, again, typically, not that I'm looking for more work, but it makes the most sense for it to come to me because I say, how big is the tree? And you say it's 32-inch diameter. And I say, well, that's not Ron Bailey. That's probably me, unless I have another volunteer who's lined up or something. So it's sort of it works best if I function as sort of the dispatch center and then determine, do I pester Ron? Do I pester someone else? Do I do it myself?
I think we need to compliment you for what you did clearing the Signal Hill path coming down to the two big pines that went across. I suspect that was you and not Ron. I did the stream at the bottom down there that had been blocked by the tree that dropped down across it. I got that cleared out. And the water's now going back into the pond, but you did a good job on the trees.
Well, I'd like to take credit for that, but it's a funny story where Ron, it was down last fall and he kept hounding me. Geez, the tree, and it was, at this point there's a foot of snow on the ground. I was thinking it's not a top priority because you can go right under it. And then for Wild About Lebanon, I mean, he takes such pride in the trails and the stewardship that he'd asked me approaching that Wild About Lebanon, are you going to be able to get up there with a chainsaw? Are you going to be able to get up there? And I said, I just don't think I can. I got way too much stuff going on and it just doesn't rise to the top of the list for my priorities. And I'll get to it at some point. And then he called me about the next day and he said, yeah, it was bugging me. I got up there with my chainsaw. So 84, 85 years old, hiked, and you saw where that tree is. That was up there and it was a big job. And up he went and that was it for that tree.
Wow.
More than that, I tried to move one of the pieces and he did very well to get him out of the trail.
Okay, anything else about land monitors?
I have a couple, this is Sarah. I have a couple of comments.
A quick thing is, Ernst again, do we have to extend the meeting time? Mark, till what time are we okay?
I'm looking at the agenda. I don't know if we had posted it. Yeah, we used to go to, what did we used to go to? 9:30 was our cutoff?
Yes.
And now we've moved to half. So we can go to 9. 9 would be our new half-hour adjustment. So we're okay.
Sarah, go ahead.
On the topic of Farnham Hill, I was there on Sunday, and I have a question about the maintenance of the road to the water tower. I think it was very recently regraded. It looks to me like it was widened, and a significant number of stems were cut down on both sides of that initial part of the trail/road. before the diversion where you can go straight to go to the water tower or turn to the right to go up along past the gate to climb the trail. And so I'm just wondering if there is a courtesy call that we get from DPW if they needed to cut down as many stems as they did. I mean, I saw beech trees just lying on the sides of the road. And there were numerous places where they also just pushed the hard packy stuff up into the trail side areas, sort of like what a snowplow might do with snow. And it might have just been from clearing it for snow. I have no idea. But it's considerably more impacted, I would say, than it was last fall.
If I may, Ernst, I was there a day or two before because I heard engine noise on the trail. And my wife and I stopped by because we were walking to the Honda garage to pick our car. And in case there were two guys with heavy equipment doing road maintenance. I did not go past the metal gate, so I don't know what happened going actually up the last part of the road to the water tower.
Yeah, Ernst, that's the part of the road that I mean, past the gate.
So I wasn't there.
Yeah, I have. I mean, I have pictures, but I don't think it's really worth sharing. I think it's more that it troubles me that the road seems to have been widened and the significant areas on the sides of the road were disturbed. And as far as I can tell, there's no good reason why. I don't know what they're trying to bring up there. I don't think they need to move the water tower down the road. I'm really wondering what kind of vehicle they're trying to prepare for. And I would kind of like to know what's.
Mark, any comments?
First I've heard, yeah. So I don't know. I mean, assuming they're doing what they perceive to be their necessary maintenance up to the water tower, and yeah, I mean, there's certainly, if some of the workers have been around for a while, they'll remember that that there's a lot of eyes and ears on this property, and yeah, there was a time when that water tank didn't exist on that property, and so and that in itself was a surprise, as Erling will remember, and some others. But yeah, long story short, I don't know. I'll look at it. I get it depends, and yeah.
I mean, if you want, this is Sarah. I can just email the city manager if that's the right route to take. I just thought I would check with the group here before talking to anybody else about it.
We also have a new director of DPW, so old protocols may not be remembered too well when you change the head.
Yeah, I guess if you email the city manager, he's probably going to forward it to Mark and say, Mark, you know anything about this, or can you look into this? So, yeah. So I mean, send the pictures along, and hopefully I'll be able to be out there and have some boots on the ground and see it firsthand.
I can put you in copy so we can't say.
How about this is
Barbara.
How about just straight phoning the Department of Public Works, and ask them what they did and what particular reason,
Right.
as opposed to bypassing them and going straight over their heads.
Sure.
Okay. This is Barbara. I think this points out how important it is for us to have a email address or a website or some way for the public to contact when they see things like this and have questions.
No, I agree, and it's like they know they can call the city, but the problem right now is that's who in the city, and sometimes the first person you reach, you get bounced 15 times. So yeah, we definitely want it clearer, and even in the even within the city rank and file, it's certainly among the residents. I don't I bet it's still a 50-50 divide that everyone thinks you call Paul Coates when there's an issue on Boston Lot, Farnham Hill, Chamber, any of the conservation properties. Everyone thinks it's Parks and Rec.
And that gives us issues to why we need to get our notice up on the kiosks, and I applaud the energy you put into it.
This is Sarah. I have another property to comment on, unless somebody else has something they want to comment on first.
This is Chris. I have a few as well, but you can keep going on yours.
I'll be quick.
Yeah.
Star Hill. Mark and Barbara are aware of this, but and I think I just informed Ernst today, but somebody has been cutting down trees on the Star Hill conservation land and used them to erect a party tent, I will call it, and they've also cut into trees like sort of a horrible old-fashioned blaze where you cut the bark off of a section in order to mark the route to their party tent, which is off the trail, down in the hollow, down in the depression, closer to the highway. And so this is part of what Eric has been going out into the Star Hill and just exploring off trail, and he discovered this one day when he was walking the power lines. And it's just another reason why we need more eyes on our properties and just more education of our residents about what is and is not allowed. For example, as far as I can tell, there is no biking allowed on the Star Hill Conservation Land according to the city's code. Nevertheless, there is biking at least tolerated on the adjacent APD trails. And that's sort of like a no man's land because APD doesn't seem to want to enforce anything or even put down any sort of regulations on paper. And so the border between the APD trails and the Star Hill Conservation Area is vague. You know, our trails actually from Star Hill went down south of our land and onto APD land, and so there's some vagueness about where conservation starts and stops. But there's definitely a lot of not accepted activities according to Chapter 52 of the city's code, which is where the conservation land regulations are spelled out. That may not be in everybody's binder, or yeah, I had to find it elsewhere. I think it should be added to everybody's binder because that's where you can find all of the conservation land regulations. And that's where I went to check to make sure that biking is not allowed on the conservation land up there on Star Hill. So anyway, that was the last piece I wanted to report on.
I wanted to mention something about Star Hill too, and I just think that we need to mark. Yeah, this is Darla. Sorry, we need to mark it better, especially where it runs right along the Woodlands Trail of APD. Okay. That's where it gets very vague. And it had been difficult to even find where the Star Hill loop, you know, where the loop closed, because I tend to walk that counterclockwise, and you know, I've had some trouble in the past finding it and then ending up on the APD trails when I didn't want to be. But yeah, we need to get that marked better.
This is Barbara. I think there's trail markings are needed in a lot of places, and that may be one of the things we put down as special projects as we get volunteers to come in.
Great.
This is Erling. Got a question on the hemlock that's across the Tickner path. So how big a saw do you need on that? How big's the...
To me, this is Ernst, that tree is about at least 2 feet across the diameter. It lies horizontally, so you have to cut it from both underneath and from the top of the trunk. I could probably do it with my chainsaw, but it's a bit short. I have somebody standing underneath it to hold it up. That might be useful.
Oh, bad idea.
Yeah, I'm not going to do that.
You better grab right a hold of it if it's 24-inch diameter.
Yeah. So you have a saw that would do it?
I can't go to 24, no.
Huh.
Not on a single pass.
No, it would take a cut from both sides of the tree.
Yeah.
From the top and from the bottom, and that's each side. It's doable. I'll come along and help you if you let me know where
Let's
you go.
see. Yeah.
Yeah, if you happen to be out there, whoever's out there next, if you happen to have your camera / phone with you, shoot me a photograph, and then I'll know where it is, as well as what size job I'm looking at. But there's only about 13 minutes left, and I believe Susan Almy, if she's still with us, she may have had something she wanted to throw out there for discussion tonight. We'll throw it under other business.
Chris also had some conservation land
Yeah.
monitoring.
All right.
Thank you. Yeah, so this is Chris. Just 2 things that maybe we could just think about and add towards projects down the road. One, I don't know if anyone's been to Two Rivers Conservation Area lately.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sarah, Darla, and I went last week.
Yeah. So, I mean, that place is just a mess, to put it nicely. I mean, it's hard to distinguish the trails. There's
Chris, did you make it to the sandy beach? We had margaritas.
Oh yeah.
It was happy hour.
I wish I got the invite. Yeah, so I mean, like it'd be great. I mean, I feel like that land more than all the others combined could use some serious work as far as like cutting back brush and having clear trail markers. And yeah, I think it could be like a really nice property if it had a little work done.
This is Barbara. When I talked to the Boy Scouts, they had worked on that in the past. And also the signs at the kiosk say that the Rotary Club is taking care of that.
What?
Yeah, lies. Oh, lies.
Yeah, we haven't been in, this is Ernst, being a Rotary Club member, we haven't been in there for 10 years.
And in the write-up for the park, it talks about and in the inventory, the natural resources inventory, Rotary is getting credit for taking care of that.
I will take the credit.
More content that needs to be updated.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, so at least like that, I mean, that could be a great future project for the Boy Scouts, for example. But yeah, just one thing to think about. And then the other one I wanted to mention was in the Goodwin Conservation Area, there's when you take the Meriden Trail down to the river, like there's that washed out bridge that's been washed out so long that the map even says that there's a washed out bridge there. And so I guess I would like, again, I know this would obviously require some work, but it would be great to put something. I mean, it doesn't even necessarily need to be whatever was there prior, but even just like some kind of basic like 2-log bridge or something so people could cross. Because otherwise, like I literally crawled across a log further down the river in order to ford it. And since that, I don't know, it would just be nice if that could connect, since that Meriden Trail is a trail part of the area, but right now it's basically a one-way trail.
This is Barbara.
There's some fairly serious stonework to be done on the far side of the stream. You notice that the cut granite block has been washed down, a couple of them over there. If they could be brought back up again, you'd have a foundation to put the far side on.
So this is Chris again. So that would be my question is like, does it, I mean, obviously it'd be great to have a nice stone bridge there, but like, can there be even something simpler? I mean, even just like, I feel like even if you could probably, if you had large enough stones, like, or arrange them in a way that you could basically just kind of walk across through the river, you know? Yeah, I don't know. I just want to throw it out there.
Yeah, Chris, this is Sarah. I agree. It'd be great to consider the options, and it's one of those. What were those large projects at the bottom of the flyer that Barbara
Yep.
worked on?
Sorry,
This is Barbara. It's also one of the things the Boy Scouts meet at the Congregational Church in Lebanon, and that's one of they had talked. He talked about wanting to be involved in Goodwin Park because it would be really convenient for them. And they went down there in the fall and got lost because the trail signs and markings were so poor. But that was another area that they had talked about being interested in.
Great.
Sarah, just a quick thing. Can you run the meeting for 2 minutes? I'll be back.
Okay, I'll
2
try.
minutes.
Biodiversity?
I'm going to pour margaritas though, so.
Ailing back on the bridge, Enfield Conservation Land has a couple of nice bridges out there, and one of which is only about 2 feet wide, which looked narrow at the time, but it's very well done. And I photographed it when we were out there this last weekend. But the thought of being able to span that would be good.
Erling, where was this?
Pardon?
Where was this bridge you?
This is a bridge. If you go out Route 4A and go up to Boys Camp Road, take a left on Boys Camp Road, you come to a bridge and a parking area right there. You can both go down to Crescent Lake or Crystal Lake, or you can go up. And if you go up the stream, you will come across the bridge, which takes you across it.
Okay. Yep. That's the Colette and the Bicknell Brook trails.
Yeah.
Okay.
This is Barbara. We have 8 minutes left and we still haven't talked about the biodiversity group yet. And I think we may have some garlic mustard things to say.
Right.
All right. Shall we move on to?
And Susan Elmy, were you wishing to chime in?
No, I don't even know if you can hear me.
Sure, we can.
Oh, you're on.
You can? Oh, okay. Well, I would have tried to get in a little while ago, but I don't need to now. I figured I wasn't really all the way in the meeting. I arrived 50 minutes late. I had 4 other Zooms today.
Huh.
So.
Is there something that you wanted to bring up?
I was trying to comment in the chat a long time ago about the Lost Fund and why we needed to keep track of it years ago. That doesn't seem really relevant today.
Okay. Ernst, are you back in the chair seat?
Yeah.
I think we were just about to move on to the biodiversity topic. 5B.
Yeah. Don Lacey.
Yep. Well, I've been doing a little bit of my mini projects on Mill Road and Baker's Crossing with cut stem treatments. But I think the big news is that Sarah and Barbara are launching into sounds like a big new garlic mustard project. So I deferred to them.
Uh-huh. Yeah, go ahead. Sarah and Barbara.
Oh, Sarah.
This is Sarah. I've been meaning to put out messages about garlic mustard for the past month, but I was just prodded by a friend who saw and admired what the Hanover listserv had posted yesterday, I think. And so I spoke with the Hanover Biodiversity chair, Barbara McElroy, about essentially borrowing their information. And so I'll be re-sharing a version of their post about garlic mustard on our listserv, and I'm hoping we can get it out on our maybe one of our Leb news blasts. But the short of it is that Don still has some signs and posts. I don't know if anybody remembers from a handful of years ago, there used to be signs about garlic mustard, at least on the rail trail. and indicators as to where to pick and how to pick it. And well, we're just hoping to get that going again, at least maybe on the rail trail, maybe on the Muskoma River Greenway. Hanover has some neighborhood groups. If we were able to create neighborhood groups that were working on known garlic mustard hotspots, that would be fantastic as well. I'm hoping that we'll just get some semi-autonomous volunteer groups going so that nobody has to manage too much, except for the bags of pulled garlic mustard and how they are disposed of. As Dawn confirmed, the really best way to get rid of garlic mustard, unless you're going to burn it or something, is to bag it, because you don't want to leave pulled or cut stems, flowering stems behind, because they can, chances are they can set seed. So it's important that we get everything bagged and disposed of. And I'm hoping that we could even get the city to collect bags from a central location or a few central locations around town. I would hate for the fact that people have to pay for their waste disposal, even of exotic plants. I would hate for that to be a barrier to residents properly disposing of their garlic mustard, especially if it's in a public place like the Greenway or the rail trail.
Well, Sarah, in the past, the city wouldn't pick it up, but they would accept if you said this is conservation stuff. If you took it to the landfill, they would take it free. I'm not sure if that's the case anymore.
Maybe I'll send an email to Mark Morgan.
Good.
Okay, this is Barbara. The last time.
Barbara, you cut out.
Turned off. Okay, the last time I was aware, Mark had said that they would not take it for free. But so I would think that if Sarah asked, she might get a more positive answer.
I'm definitely willing and to communicate directly with Mark Morgan at the landfill. I was hoping that maybe even if the planning office and even the rec department also spoke up about it, that would be additional power to get this overcome this barrier. They have a bit more maybe I don't know pull than I do with whoever is in charge of ultimately making that decision about who pays for the disposal. But so we'll see. I'm hoping to get messages out to the listserv in the next couple of days, and Don is going to get me the old signs and stakes that he's assembled in the past, and we'll update them with new signs if they need new signs. And
Sarah, now is the time to be doing it. It's in full flower, and it'll be a little too late in just a few more weeks.
Oh yeah, I meant a couple of days. If I said a couple of weeks, I hope to get everything out in a couple of days.
No, I just meant maybe planning for next year is another thing if you really want to get this going too.
Yeah, yep, absolutely. I figure there's enough. There are many more people perhaps hanging around these days than normal.
Good point.
Paying a bit more attention to things that are flowering in their backyards.
Well, Erling and Dawn and I worked with Nicole and on the Greenway, and there were a lot of people going by. There was a lot of education taking place, so that would be a nice opportunity to educate.
Right.
People were very curious as to what was going on.
That's right.
So folks, we're going to run out of time here. We either need a motion to extend or a motion to adjourn.
I move we adjourn.
I second that.
Any other business? All right, let's take a roll call on that. Where are my members here? Sarah, in favor?
I am in favor.
Erling?
Yes.
Chris?
Reluctantly.
Yes, I'm in favor.
Bruce?
In favor.
Sue Ellen? Okay. Dawn?
In favor.
Barbara?
Sue Almy is here, so I'm not voting. Sue is.
No, Sue Elmy never got into the meeting, as far as I could tell.
Well, when you came in, I stopped being able to vote, so you vote.
Okay. So,
I don't even have one of those little circles.
I don't vote either.
you don't vote either?
No, I'm only not a full member.
We're alternates.
Alternate.
Didn't I appoint Barbara hereby to a full position?
But you did, but you appointed me in Sue Almy's place. Once
But
Sue Almy
You
arrived.
recognize Sue Elmy as a member, so you're still a member.
Adjourned.
I guess yes. Any case, this is a unanimous aye to adjourn the meeting.
All right. Well done, Ernst.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
I will need a hands-on training on this garlic mustard.
All right.
Oh, yeah?
Glad to
Oh.
survive that.
A volunteer, a live one.
Yeah. Just give me a date.
Tomorrow morning.
Tomorrow morning. Friday morning.
Find some garlic mustard, pull it and put it in the bag. There's loads of it.
Yeah, but I don't know for sure what it looks like.
John, this is Sarah. I did wonder whether you supplied bags back in the day or if people just supplied their own bags.
No, Mark bought a bunch of, it was supplied us with contractor bags that we used.
Yeah, great big blue contractor bags.
Well, not blue ones. These are black ones that we've
Oh,
got.
well,
Yeah.
Okay.
So
So unless-
I may have some of those in the garage left. I will look. Maybe Mark can get some more if not.
Okay.
You already adjourned.
So I'll email.
So are we allowed to talk about non-conservation commission stuff? Like, I don't think you see a little circle with your initials in it because you see your camera is on. If you turn off your camera, then I think you show up as a little circle.
They kind of threatened me with not being able to do anything unless I turned on the camera. So
Who's threatening you, Sue?
this damn Teams app,
Oh no.
which tried to take over my computer when I came out last month, and I finally managed to get it killed, and now I've put it back again.
Oh my gosh, I think you have a poltergeist in your.
Well, in any case, so
I'll try to do it right next time.
Dawn and Sarah, I'll email you and ask to come along on this garlic mustard uprooting and burning up affair.
Well, you know, an easy place to see garlic mustard is on the steep bank right across Mascoma Street from Jake's Market. It's growing
Yeah.
all along that bank in flower right now. So you can see it there. But,
Nice little yellow flowers. Looks like violets when it's not in flower.
Okay. Can you touch it by bare hands?
oh, you can eat
Yeah.
it.
yes, you can.
It's
Yeah.
edible.
It's not one of those toxic ones. No.
Ernst, this is Sarah. I will call you when I plan to go out to the Mascoma River Greenway. It's a nice wide space so that we could still socially distance and set up some signs and do a little bit of pulling.
Good. Who'll bring the bag?
Yet to be determined. Don might be able to supply. Otherwise, I might take a trip to Home Depot. If I think we've lost Mark, so I can't tell if he has any sources.
I'll put stuff on your lawn tomorrow morning, Sarah, and I'll try to include some bags.
Awesome.
Okay. Let me know when you're going.
Okay.
All right.
Okay.
All right, everybody.
Next month.
Bye-bye.
Good
Bye-bye.
night.
Bye.
How to shut it off.